On today's episode, we are talking officiating. We'll have interviews with local refs in the D1 all the way down to varsity and youth sports. We'll be having a throwback interview with Jerry Markbreit, former NFL White Hats. And we'll have our old look at new and forgotten and never forgetting.
Where else would you want to be other than literally on the field or on the court or on the rink, being in the middle of everything? You know, I can't think of another job where you can do that.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
Hello, Newsa-Cast listeners, and welcome to episode number 9 of the Newsa-Cast. We appreciate your continuing to join us on this journey, and keep listening and following the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We really appreciate that. It's hard to believe that we've done 9 episodes already, Joe.
Yeah, we keep plugging along, and like we've said before, it's a lot of fun for you and I. This episode in particular is it's been a passion of mine for a lot of years, talking officials. So we get to nerd out on that, which I'm sure everybody's going to be excited for that, right?
I've yelled at enough officials, so
that's right. We all have.
So that works as well.
That's right. Well, now you get to meet officials and see that they're actually humans and they actually put work into their craft. And
yeah, that's
love to get yelled at.
Yeah, I think that's I don't think the average person realizes how much work goes into officiating and the planning that takes to be a quality official on the field. So I think that'll be an eye-opening listen for our listeners here on the Newsa-Cast.
Yeah, I hope so. It's a subject certainly I'm passionate about, and it's a big part of my life. So I'm excited to share that. That's for sure, Tosh.
Excellent.
It's been a good week. It's hard to believe here. Labor Day is coming up, but high school football's in full swing. We talked about the Apple Bowl last week a little bit. That was a tough one for FVL.
Tough one for FVL. But you have to take those types of games and you have to learn from them. And hopefully that propels you through the rest of the season. So hopefully they can figure things out. Xavier had a nice game. So for them to continue and building on the success that they've had, that's going to be important for them. I know the Kimberly Bayport game was a grinder, 17-14 game. It played out just exactly, we thought maybe they'd throw up some more points, but it was a battle for sure. So,
yeah, early in the season for both teams, I think the offense took they struggled the first half for sure, just both teams trying to find their way, but they both have pretty good defenses. So that's part of the issue there. But yeah, that was a great high school football game. And unfortunately, Friday, we had a little weather move in and interrupted some of the games, but we move on here to week 3 of high school football. Appleton North travels down to Fond du Lac, plays on another new turf field down at Fond du Lac. That's going to be nice.
That is a highlight FVA game for sure early in the season.
Yeah. I was thinking, Tosh, this is the year of turf. You've got Fond du Lac threw some new turf down. You've got Neenah with a new high school. They have new turf, and I think Brillion has new turf. I thought I heard.
Okay.
Or Chilton or Brillion.
Chilton, I think does for sure.
Yeah, that might be it. Yep. No, it's most of the schools now are going to turf, which is.
It's become a little bit more economically feasible, especially with the lifespan as the technology changes and improves. The lifespan of that turf is now 12 to 15 years.
Yeah,
it makes it a little bit more. Yeah, it makes it a little bit more of a something that high schools can do. And then when you can have all of your teams playing, you can have your baseball team out there, your softball team, your soccer team, your football, and not have to worry about that natural turf getting tore up and muddy like they used to, 3/4 of the way through the season. It does make sense economically to put that turf in.
Yeah, no, agreed. And they're putting them in for the baseball teams. You're seeing a lot more turf infields. Yep. The soccer pitches are becoming turf now. A lot of places now have indoor facilities.
Right.
It's It's something to see. That's for sure.
I know my son doesn't like playing on it, but he says he'd rather play on grass. But for the sake of the game and be able to play and not worry about weather and different things like that, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I understand it from a player's perspective. From an official's perspective, I love working a turf field. Obviously, the lines are clean. Just everything is better on turf. But I think Ethan's right, and he might be referring to just how your body feels, because your body does take a bit more pounding, I feel, on turf a little bit. The footing's great, but grass is it's just naturally softer. It feels better on the joint. So
absolutely.
I know where he's coming from on that. I think I agree with him.
Yeah, and it's not the AstroTurf that it used to be, where it's like laid on concrete. They do put a lot into it, and it has improved. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I think you're going to see a lot more schools going to the turf as they fundraise and get money to be able to do that. So,
Tosh, that makes me laugh. That'd be a great and old look at the old carpeted concrete. Remember, Camp Randall was that way. Soldier Field. That was literally a thin piece of carpet over concrete.
Yeah, that's just crazy to think that was something that was acceptable, right? Oh my gosh.
And then you put that down in St. Louis and Cincinnati and Kansas City.
Yeah. In
the middle of the summer, it's like 195 degrees. Your feet are melting.
Right. Exactly. They rubber melting on the field.
Yeah. Man, the 70s rocked, didn't they?
The old AstroTurf. Same stuff that your grandma put on her patio.
With no padding.
With no padding whatsoever. Exactly.
Baseballs being hit off of that.
Remember the old Metrodome?
Yeah. It would bounce absolutely.
Like 20 feet in the air. Gosh.
Yeah, it's no wonder like a guy like Earl Campbell, you feel bad for him. The guy can't even walk anymore. And you just, and Houston, if I remember correctly, they played in the Astrodome. That was all turf his whole career. And that was crap turf back then as well.
That was. You had some weather move through when you were reffing on Friday. How does that go? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, nobody wants a weather delay. It just nobody. They just suck. They don't happen too often. But yeah, we got to we were in Menasha at Calder. So it's a nice stadium, but unfortunately, the officials' room is literally the size of a small little closet, and you try to fit 5 guys in there. But yeah, we got to halftime and had to sit in that room for an hour. And as officials, I mean, the rule according to the WIAA is that whenever you see lightning or hear thunder, you reset your clock for 30 minutes until once you hit 30 minutes, haven't seen anything, you can play. The technology is advanced a little bit now where they have the radar right on the sidelines, the trainers, the lightning detectors. So they kind of kept us updated. But yeah, it was an hour delay. And then we played the third quarter. A lot of the third quarter was played in a downpour. That's fun. and then we ended up finally calling it with 10 minutes and 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. There was lightning, and Nina was up 40-0. And the coaches, that's a coach's decision, and that's what they decided to do. And that's fine with us. And we let the WIAA know, and it's a completed game. But yeah, nobody likes a weather delay.
Yeah. Yeah. That was some weird. I mean, it just kind of popped up and hit the southern part of the valley. I know at the FVL Xavier game, they're in the second quarter and had, probably close to an hour delay, and they just finished up. They had a quick halftime of maybe like 5 minutes, and they just went straight into the third quarter.
Yeah, it's the same thing in lacrosse. You obviously get spring storms as well. And the coaches, everybody's in the same boat. You ultimately just want to get the game played. I know this past Friday, some teams move game times up. There's a lot of coordination to make that happen, but you do whatever you try to, if you can move the game up 2 hours and try to get it in before the weather comes, by all means. That's what most coaches, clubs, schools, they try to do that.
Well, good. Anything else new and exciting happening?
No, that's it. For me, it's all out football. Done a lot of reffing. Yeah, a lot of reffing over the last 4 days, and it was it was great to get back out there and let the ankles rest a little bit and get ready to do it again this weekend.
Yeah. Do you have another long weekend of reffing?
Yeah, we have. I have a game Thursday and Friday night, so looking forward to doing that, and then just gonna deliver mail the rest of the time.
Well, it's gonna be nice weather. It's gonna be 70s. It's going to cool off a little here, and before we hit the heat for the Labor Day weekend. But yeah, it's a fun time of the year. School's going to be starting as soon as the weekend's done, and kids will be back in classes here in Wisconsin and Fox Valley. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. So,
last weekend, right? Last weekend before school.
It is the last weekend before school for kids. So this is the last hurrah. Yeah. So, well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We get to spend some time talking with refs who have all kinds of experience. We're talking about refs who are varsity high school football all the way to D1. And not only football, but we have lacrosse, we have basketball, we have volleyball, we have hockey, you name it. So we get to hear some really cool experiences and really talk about the state of reffing at this point. If you don't know already, we have a ref shortage in not only in Wisconsin, but across the entire nation.
It's an epidemic, Tosh. I don't know if that's the right word. It's one of those words where it's in dire straits for sure.
It is, absolutely. And, the thing that this affects are the kids. And without refs, you don't have games. I know hockey had some games last year. We didn't as a team for the Fox City Stars, but hockey had some games, especially down in the Milwaukee area, that were canceled because of a lack of refs. So, this is going to be interesting for people to be able to hear firsthand what you guys are going through.
Yeah, definitely. Tosh, I don't know how much we talked about it in the interview, but I can't stress that enough, what you just said about games being canceled. It doesn't necessarily happen in football, although the assigners really work to get the games filled and they might adjust game times. But the other sports, like the number of basketball games that are being played, and then you get into baseball and lacrosse and some of these sports maybe that don't have as many officials, and games get canceled all the time. And I didn't tell this story on the interview, but I officiate lacrosse in addition to football. And the reason I started lacrosse was because my son Owen was going to play, and I knew there weren't officials there. They didn't have officials. I mean, if he wanted to play through high school, I pretty much knew I needed to step up. So, to be an official, because you need officials just as much as you need coaches. And there's a desperate need for coaches as well.
Right.
Good quality coaches. It's just, we're all fighting the same thing. We just need good quality people to volunteer or just be committed to some of these things. And it's tough because everybody's busy.
Yeah, that's true. And, if we want to see our kids continue to be able to participate in the activities that they do, from youth all the way up through varsity sports in high school, we have to get people involved, get them involved when they're young, get them involved with their playing, and let them continue to work in ref so that future generations are going to have refs. We have we're top heavy as far as age. And it's something that has to happen. We have to get young people involved more. So, those are some of the topics. One of the topics that we'll talk about when we have the ref interview, as I call it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good. We enjoy the fact that we have people tuning in. I think this is going to be an informative interview. And if you continue to like these interviews, remember, we can find us on Spotify, on iTunes, any place you find your podcasts. And we even have a throwback this week of a umpire.
Yes, an NFL referee, Jerry Markbreit.
Yeah.
He was in the Big Ten, and he was. We'll get some pictures of him up on our social page. I think you guys will recognize him. But his interview, his throwback it's really, really good. He was an excellent speaker, and that comes through. He is a professional, and it's really good from 1990.
1990. Wow. And if you like that interview and you get that clip of it on our podcast, remember that on the weekend on Sunday, you're going to get the full interview on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, the throwback has coincided with the Newsa-Cast. We released the Newsa-Cast on Thursday, and the throwback comes on Sunday, which means we have 9 throwbacks up there, from Bill Walton to Jackie Joyner-Kersee to, there's some...
Yeah.
All the folks that have been to the banquet, we're going to eventually get most of those names out there. So it's Yeah, it's fun to listen to. You get a snippet of it during the podcast, and then you get to watch the whole thing on YouTube. And it's the full video. It's not audio. It's video and audio. So
Yeah, it's
pretty
great.
cool stuff.
Hope you enjoy this episode, and
Yes,
let's get the show on the road.
Hey, Tosh, should we take a second from the show and talk about one of our sponsors?
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
And we've got a terrific sponsor, Tosh. They've been with us for a long time, and they do something that's really special that we're proud of, and I know they're proud of. And they're one of the sponsors of the high school scholarships each year that we give to high school athletes. And you sit actually on that committee that chooses the high school athletes. And without JJ Keller, it's not possible to honor and help these athletes.
Yeah, the scholarship committee is really thankful because we get to honor these terrific scholar athletes in the Fox Valley from the various high schools. They allow us to give them a little money that goes towards their schooling. We're looking at, the cream of the crop, kids who are working hard in school, getting good grades, participating and being letter winners in multiple sports. And even talking about, players of the year for the state at the state level. So we've had a great opportunity working with JJ Keller. And, JJ Keller not only does the scholarships, but they're also a huge supporter of the community and even sponsoring a dog sled team for the Iditarod, which is incredible as well.
Going back real quickly to the scholarship winners, one of the things that blows my mind every single time, most of these kids that receive these scholarships, their grade point average is 4.0 or above. I didn't even know that was possible.
Absolutely. They triple my grade point average in high school. But
Bob Euchre used to say, I'm in the half to make the top half possible.
There you go.
Well, Tosh, we're excited to have JJ Keller as a sponsor with the Red Smith Banquet and to be able to give scholarships out to the kids. They've always backed everything that we've done, Red Smith. They're backers of the Newsa-Cast. And we follow the same mission where we just want to give a little bit back to the community and make it a place that we all enjoy to live.
Big shout out and a big thanks to JJ Keller.
Particularly, thank you, Mr. Keller.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to that segment where we take a look at history. We call it an old look at new. And we try to look at events that may have happened here in the world, around us, and just some things that we remember and some things that have been happening this week in history. You ready for this, Joe?
I am ready for this. And I definitely agree with you, Tosh. It's taking a look at our memory and remembering the things that happened back here in northeastern Wisconsin. And it's actually been kind of fun.
I don't know if we're going to hit the same one this week, but
doubtful.
Doubtful, but we'll see. I don't think so. I don't think you're going to have the same one I have, and
yeah, I don't think
we'll
so
see
either.
if you have the same one. So I'm going to start this time just to make sure that you don't copy me this time.
Oh, come on now, have a hitting streak going.
I'm going back to 1991, and this week, 1991, I'm in college at UW-Whitewater, and a record comes out that kind of changes music history. And I guess you could kind of say it was sort of about around the start, or it may have started the whole grunge movement. And that was Pearl Jam 10.
Yeah. Oh, I love Pearl Jam. I
distinctly remember Pearl Jam 10. Great band, still a great band. Love listening to Pearl Jam. But that album just changed music at at
Yeah,
you had
100%.
Pearl Jam, you had Nirvana.
All out of Seattle.
That grunge movement.
Yeah.
That was 1991, this week, 1991.
That's still great music. I listen to a lot of music myself, and you're right. Pearl Jam is still great. I still love listening to Nirvana. Some of their I've been listening lately to some of the unplugged stuff, their acoustic.
Oh, yeah.
It's been they were so good, but you're right. I mean, Pearl Jam, just an all-time band. One of all-time favorites, really.
Absolutely. Great band. Yeah, that was incredible.
Is there better
incredible
voice
music
than Eddie Vedder? I mean, that guy's voice is just top 3 for sure.
Yeah. Well, they've done some amazing stuff, and they've had some, Eddie's done some stuff on his own too. The music soundtrack to Into the Wild
Yes.
is amazing. So, they're an all-time classic band. Still love listening to them all this time later.
Mm-hmm.
That's mine. That's my look at history for this week.
No, I love that, Tosh. And I took your advice and kind of looked into my mind a little bit of what was back in the day. And with the start of high school football season here, getting back on the field, officiating a little bit, I kind of was reminiscing to myself. I got to work at several different venues over the last few days, and I remember back to just how much high school football has changed the venues, the stadiums, and actually the start times. So I remember very well back in the mid 80s, early 80s, 70s, 80s, Appleton West. It was only Appleton West and Appleton East at that time, and FVL and Xavier. But very few fields had lights back then. So you started your high school football games at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon, and Appleton West would play at Einstein Middle School.
Yeah.
All those bleachers are gone. But I think about that all the time, that they played there, and then Appleton West moved to Appleton East, and they played, when you and I were in school, that was our home football field was Appleton East, and eventually they moved down to the Bonta Bowl. But as I take an old look at new, the high school stadiums have really, really changed, from the grass fields to the no lights to now the new stadiums. I worked Kimberly the other night, and beautiful brand new turf. The new LED lights are just nuts. I happened to be listening to the broadcast of the Kimberly game. John Mino brought this up when he first started filming TV for the news. He mentioned specifically the lights, the old classic. You can hardly see big country light, on those fields. And he was saying, he was commenting on just how much those have come along. It's incredible. So, just taking an old look back, boy, we've come a long way on high school football fields.
Some of those old fields would have like dark spots.
Yeah.
That if you were playing, you couldn't see, but if you're in the stands, you couldn't really see it either.
Right. And you still get that in some of the smaller towns. Still have that feel, but some of these stadiums now are really just incredible. The amenities, the facilities these kids have in high school, they're lucky, that's for sure.
It's not quite the level of Texas yet, but
that's next level. That's absolutely next level.
I just saw a school outside of Dallas built a $46 million high school football stadium.
Yeah.
No, $76 million. It seats like 40,000 people.
It's just
something like that.
Suites and all of that, and you're playing high school football. Which, if memory serves me correct, Texas does not follow the NFHS rules. They follow college rules. Their high school plays under those rules.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little interesting note there. But anyway, that's cool. Our old look at new. If you ever have any ideas, shoot us an email, Newsa-Cast@gmail.com. Well, Tosh, I think if we go around the horn, maybe have the guys introduce themselves. We just briefly, the three of us work on John's crew, our Friday night football high school crews. John's the white hat, and then we have another position, a back judge that rotates a little bit. But I guess we're kind of the core group on John's crew. We've been together for quite a few years, so I think we'll start with John, and just if you guys just maybe tell us what sports you officiate, a little bit what you think of officiating. We all have a passion for it.
Yeah, I can start. John, last name is Doden, and I only actually officiate one sport. I do football, but I do obviously high school varsity football and Division III college football. This time of year, it's pretty busy, especially with some of the high schools playing on Thursday night. So Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, pretty busy time of the year.
What? Why are you an official? I think we all have kind of our reasons. Maybe.
I would say two reasons. Number one, I grew up playing sports, loving sports. I played football, I played baseball. I played basketball, a little bit of soccer. But at the high school level, my freshman year, I played those 3 sports: baseball, football, basketball, and it kind of dwindled down as I got a little bit older. My senior year, I didn't play any sports, but that's when I started officiating football. Actually, my senior year of high school, and then I would say number 2, my second reason is my parents, my mom and my dad. My dad officiated basketball, football, baseball. Man, I don't even know how many years. He did baseball for the longest, and it was 40 plus years, probably even closer to 50 years. Basketball, definitely, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 years. Football also probably close to 40 years, maybe a little bit more. But my mom did basketball, hasn't done that in a long time, but volleyball, she's still doing volleyball. She's in her 70s. She's in her mid 70s, still doing volleyball. So those 2 got me involved with it.
Yeah, they're definitely members in the community. Every official knows the Dodens, without a doubt. We'll definitely expand on some of what you talked about, but Chad does hockey, does football, does a lot of things. You've seen him as a weatherman on TV as well. He's a master of many trades. So Chad, what's your officiating resume look like, and why are you an official?
Yeah, so my main sport, I guess if you want to call it that, is hockey. That's kind of what I grew up playing since I was 3, when most of us start learning how to skate, and played through high school. Wasn't really good enough to go on to the next level, at least in for playing hockey. I played football as well through high school, and had an opportunity to play 2 years at the Division III level at UW-Stevens Point. But it got to the time where I had to make a decision. Do I stay at Point and kind of work on the education in a field that they didn't offer, or do I end up transferring and going somewhere else? So that was the end of my playing career after 2 seasons at the Division III level. I started officiating hockey really because my uncle, who worked at the college level, at the minor pro level. So I got started working little kids games when I was 10 years old, and have stuck with it now, going on 23 years officiating hockey. Put in a lot of time at the rinks doing youth games, and just kind of stuck with it because I thought it was a really good side job, better than maybe working in fast food or something like that through high school and in college as well. And then just randomly, when I was working at one of my first jobs in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, I was working a lot of high school games up at Northland Pines, which is up in Eagle River, northern Wisconsin. And at the time, the athletic director there knew I played football and said, "Hey, we're desperate for football officials. Would that be something you'd be interested in?" And I never would have considered officiating football until he asked me that. And I said, "You know what? Sure, let's give it a shot." So that next fall, I started getting a couple middle school and JV games. And before I know it, I got in contact with Jon. I forget how the whole story came about, but got in contact with Jon, and that was probably 5-ish years ago now. And I haven't really had a reason to quit. I still enjoy going. And so that kind of what drives me to keep doing it. Plus just the camaraderie with the crews that you make as well. You kind of lose that when you stop playing, kind of having that team aspect, but you get into officiating, especially with football, when you're typically with the same 5 to 7 guys each week for 3.5 months. You kind of build those relationships. And that's something that's really tough to replace when you don't play anymore after your high school or college career. So that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's really true, isn't it? The relationships, and we all have a special bond that I don't have a relationship like I have with you guys, with anybody else in my life. It's just, we have a pretty specific thing that we focus on, but it bleeds over into other parts of our lives. But I just love that. That is one of the things for me that I just love about officiating is just that, the relationships.
No, I can't really agree more. You can, especially at a high school level, you're not doing this to get rich by any means. And so just being able to have something to look forward to, especially if you have a big game, it's really hard to replicate anything like that in some different type of occupation. And especially if you're a big sports person that grew up playing that sport, where else would you want to be other than literally on the field or on the court or on the rink, being in the middle of everything? I can't think of another job where you can do that. I know people like going into coaching, but that's just something that I don't feel like I would enjoy nearly as much as being able to do what we do.
No, I absolutely agree. And we were talking about relationships, and one of my favorite in the world is this next guy. What a guy this guy is. Steve Liddell. How many sports do you do now? I don't know if I have enough fingers to count, but how many sports do you do?
Well, we do baseball, basketball, and football.
Yes.
And then I'm an official for volleyball now.
He dabbles in volleyball.
And so volleyball is a long story, but I grew up playing all three major sports. I went on to college, and basically how I got into this thing, I had done some Little League baseball in high school. And a guy, I was 20 at the time, he says, "Hey, we need a third guy to do some baseball. It's a two-man crew. And we'll just go three-man." And playing baseball, I thought, I played baseball. I know everything, so no problem. Well, it was a collegiate summer league game, and I had no idea what I was doing. The only thing I really remember is I had a swipe tag in the ninth inning that I totally blew. The guy was safe, or he was really out. I called him safe. And all I remember is the manager going to the front step of the dugout, and the guy that was behind the plate, a guy named Jim Schaefer, who was in the Mountain West Conference for years, yelled out, "Hey, Jimmy, help out the kid." And that was the tying run at second down the swipe tag. And the next batter got out. We ended the game, thank God. And I just remember going back to the locker room, and they had beer waiting for me. And I think we drank a six-pack before I left. But that was my first real game. And then I just caught the bug from there. And I couldn't play any of the sports anymore. I wasn't one of those guys that was going to be playing, past 22, 23 years old. So I thought officiating would be an interesting endeavor, journey, so to speak. And it's been a journey for, close to 40 years. And I think, it's one of the things Chad mentioned, the relationships are the key. The guys I work with nowadays, I really enjoy. I think I've seen just about everything in officiating, but I think one of the things that officiating going into it that I didn't really realize, I think it made me a better human being. It made me a better business person. It helped me with relationships. It helped me in a lot of ways that I never thought, officiating a basketball game or a baseball game or a football game that could ever give it back to me. So, but, I know we're going to talk today about the state of officiating, but to go to volleyball, I learned volleyball through YouTube. And, the true story is a couple of years ago, the guy says, "Hey, Tuesday and Wednesday nights, are you free?" I says, "I'm free. I need you to do some volleyball games." I said, "Never been on a volleyball court." So he says, "Go onto YouTube, learn the game of volleyball, no problem." So I go like 4 days, I'm studying YouTube. I get on the court, and there's a veteran guy there, and he says, "Hey, you're new?" I says, "Oh, yeah, I'm new." He says, "How long you been doing this?" "Varsity match." I says, "We're about to begin my career in 5 minutes. Here we go." That's kind of where we are in the state of officiating, so it's been a great journey. And
you're not supposed to share that you learned volleyball by watching YouTube videos. You know that, right?
Yeah. But true story. So
you're honest.
Yeah.
But that's the whole journey of officiating. And I really believe after all these years, officiating is a mirror of society. The challenges that we face in society, we see in officiating. I don't think the kids have changed over time, but I think society's changed, and that has changed the art of sports and the art of officiating. I handle situations a lot different today than I did 20 years ago, just because society's changed. That's why I think one of the great challenges of officiating is. So
no, I agree, and I think we'll get into that in a little bit. Tosh, one of the things I've got to tell you about Steve and his dedication to officiating, his travel schedule during the season. So Steve's currently in New Mexico right now working. That's where his day job is. So we had a game this past week, Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
So Steve will fly with the red eye on Wednesday night, get into Milwaukee or Chicago at 5 a.m, drive up here on the day of the game, go to JD's for a couple of cheeseburgers and 10 Pepsis. And then we meet and work our game Thursday night, and he does the same thing for lunch Friday. And we work our game Friday night. He'll do a college game Saturday. If it really works out, he'll throw a youth game in there, and then he flies back to New Mexico. But you've been doing that forever.
Yeah, 16 years.
Wow.
I'm in the beer business. We sell liquor. We sell all kinds of soft drinks, beer, but I don't know, it's just a way of life. It's a lifestyle.
I'm in the beer business too, but it's just drinking. So.
There you go. Yeah. And, my wife will tell me, the beer business and the officiating business has been the mistress. She thinks officiating is like the Peter Pan syndrome, doesn't get it. And, but that's just the way it is. And you got to have a good lady behind you to let you do all this, because it takes up a lot of time. My wife would rather watch grass grow. I worked a national championship football game. I said, hey, it's going to be on ESPN. You should watch it. She had no interest. So, but it's a fun endeavor. So,
hey, I got a question. Any of you can answer. Maybe all of you will. You all talked about doing youth sports, high school, and college. What is it like transitioning between all three of those?
Well, I think working youth sports, you see every situation. You might not see it in a high school game. You might not see it in a college game, but you will see situations in a youth football game that you might have never seen before, and you got to go back in the locker room at the end of the game and look up the rule or situation.
I would say as far as youth, Tosh, it's more I'm teaching a little bit more out there with the youth.
Okay.
I feel like I'm more of a coach. Right. I'm telling the kids, this is the way you should, and I actually show them out on the field between plays. This is the way you should block. This is where your hands should be. Your hands should be inside, not hugging your opponent. And I think that's, just to kind of jump in here, one of the main differences for when I'm out there officiating youth football. I'm more of a teacher, more of a coach, and not just with the players, but also with those coaches as well. Teaching them a little bit about football, teaching them a little bit about the rules.
Yeah, and I think I would really agree with Jon and Steve more so. For me, more about the hockey, having that background, doing more youth stuff back in the day, having more of that patience and versus your rules and game management, which is what you start to use a little bit more as you move on through high school and into college. When you're working a 7-8-year-old hockey game, a lot of the kids don't know what offsides is and some of this stuff. And so being a little more lenient, I guess, right, just to let them play versus being totally strict on some of these things is something that you would get away with more with that age group. And then that all starts to change as you move up and the kids get older. And by the high school level, they should be knowing most of the rules and what they can and can't do.
And then the other thing, Tosh, is the rule differences. It's huge. Yeah. Maybe not so much for the youth and to high school, because those rules are very similar, right? The youth, they use the high school, most of the high school rules for the most part, pretty much the same. but then from high school to the Division III to college rules, all the little differences that you need to transition from a 7:00 Friday night varsity game, and you get done at 9:30, and then you're officiating the very next day at 1:00, maybe even 11:00 in the morning at a Division III school. And just knowing the differences between the two and making sure you're not mixing them up, it's huge. It's difficult at times.
Yeah, Tosh, that is one of the biggest challenges, that, and then the mechanics from a Friday night to a Saturday night, everything changes. And it's probably one of the frustrating things the officials here are the parents and the players and coaches. They don't understand the rule differences. And then you even add another layer, the NFL rules are different than college, and everybody gets those mixed up and argues and thinks it's a call is a certain way, but they're using Sunday rules. But officials can't screw that up. You have to know what you're talking about and what you're calling. And John's right, that's a very difficult thing, and kind of leads to my next question. We briefly talked about it, but the time that we all put into this, I mean, I look at this as a hobby that I take really serious, and none of us are in it for the money. None of us would do it for free, but we all take it serious, and we put a lot of time in during the week. And as officials progress to the D1 and to a profession, to an NFL official, they put in even more time. But even at our level, at the high school and the lower college level, you guys speak a little bit to your preparation during the week when you're working a Friday night game and then a Saturday night game. You all have a busy schedule if you just look at your football schedule. John, what's your week look like?
Man, it's even more now, because you guys know I'm now a crew chief white hat for Division III. So I think I told you, Joe, and Chad and Steve, maybe this past Friday night or Thursday night, I feel like I've sent out more emails, within the past couple weeks that I sent out all of last football season. Emailing coaches. It's a lot. And I'm getting pre-games typed up for college, and the high school pre-games. Sending out those emails to you guys it doesn't take up a whole lot of time, but it's a lot of time. So, you're watching film throughout the week. You're watching high school film. You're watching college film. And I even try to do that if I can during breaks at work or during my lunch break, when I'm working out after my job, when I get home at 3:30, 4 o'clock on my iPad, I'm watching film. When my kids go to bed, 8:30, 9 o'clock, I'm popping on film, high school or college film, sending out emails. It seems like whenever I get the chance during the week, it's spent doing something with officiating. It's a lot of time. And I'll let these other guys kind of answer about maybe what a Friday night looks like, or when they're leaving, or what a Saturday looks like as well.
Something you bring up that I don't think a lot of people, the average parent, your fans out in the stands, is just what you just talked about, is the amount of time as an official that you have to put in and prep before these games on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. That's crazy. And it's all the sports. I mean, you have Joel with lacrosse, you have Chad with hockey, you have Steve with a little bit of everything, and John with football. I mean, we're talking, you guys have experience in every single sport from fall through spring. And that prep time, that's incredible. I mean, I didn't even realize how much prep you guys put in to prepare yourselves to be at that level for each of those games.
Yeah, one of the best tools that has ever happened to us, and I know the teams will say the same thing, is the ability to watch film. When we all first started, you didn't have access to film. I remember bringing CDs to schools, asking if they could burn the tape to it. But now we can. The film is pretty good, and the quality keeps getting better every year, so that really helps. But to John's point, then you become. I mean, you want to watch the film. We always are looking at our fouls. We're always looking at. There's always plays in every game that you want to look at. And
the officials that want to get better watch film.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Chad, I know you have crazy weeks as well. What's your weeks look like?
Yeah, it's gotten a little more crazier within the last 2 seasons, especially for football, because we're now adding games on Thursday. So what would typically be a normal week of work, Monday through Friday, now turns into working a game. Who knows how far away? Hopefully, not too far. We're not getting back at midnight, but sometimes there are those situations just due to distance or, at the time of this recording, just a few days ago, weather delays and things like that. So just doing your best to time manage and have the ability to have, a few of these extra nights. So this time of the year, still Thursday and Friday evenings, for the most part now, are devoted to high school football, getting to the field, typically around hour and a half, hour 15 before kickoff, because then we typically are out on the field by about 6:30 for a 7 p.m. kick, so we can go through our pregame routines with coaches and stuff like that. And then, come Saturdays for Division III football, most of the games around Wisconsin and nearby states are either at 1 o'clock or there might be an evening game, a 6 or 7 o'clock game on Saturday. So much like for high school, depending on how far away you're traveling, you might be getting back from your high school game at 11, 11:30, and then have to be on the road meeting some of your crewmates by 6, 7 o'clock that next morning to get to your game by 11 a.m. for a 1 p.m. kickoff. So you can go through your typical routine, and just what they expect from us to be on the field and stuff is different for college compared to what you would normally do for high school. And then once we're able to get the film, both from the high school games and then the college games, I think all of us on here would agree that no one's a bigger critic than ourselves. So I'm still relatively new at football. I have a lot to learn, and I'm not going to get better if I'm not watching the calls that I make and the mechanics that I'm doing, and not just the good things, but what did I screw up on also, because you have to be honest with yourself during the good and the bad to get better. So spending that time getting through the film for the high school games, once we get that film for the college games, then we're having to enter in the penalties that we called or didn't call into a website to then be critiqued by Division I officials later on that following week. And so, it's really interesting, especially when we're talking about the film. Someone who has no experience officiating whatsoever asking me about the job, and I say, yeah, we're watching film and stuff like that. One of the most typical questions that I'll receive is, well, why do you watch film? Well, mainly for the reasons I just explained, because we're trying to get better. And so it's not just reviewing film from a game that you just worked, but then if you have the opportunity to watch film for the next week on a team, kind of scouting, hey, what type of formations do they do? How do they run their offense? Tendencies like that. And that becomes a little more evident and I think routine as you get into Division II and Division I football. But if we're able to get some of that film even at the Division III level, our crews are typically having a Zoom meeting or something like that, on a Tuesday before a Saturday game, just so we can all talk about the previous week and what we have upcoming that following week. So, we're talking about all this work that goes into it, but we don't want it to deter people from getting involved as well, because what you get out of it, is really rewarding, despite what sounds to be like just a whole extra amount of work and job. You can find a way to, to make it work if it's something that you really do enjoy.
Yeah, you absolutely can. The rewards absolutely outweigh the work. I mean, for me, it's a really fulfilling thing in life. And I Chad mentioned something about this crew in particular is really honest with each other when it comes to film. Like, we're honest. If it's good call, bad call. And I really like that. Nobody wants to hear that, hey, you made a mistake, but it's really good to hear that. And it helps in life to hear that. And that's one of the things that I get out of officiating. I love that brute honesty, and you don't get that everywhere. Steve, I know your schedule is crazy. You put just as much time into watching film, you throw travel in there as well?
Depends on the season. My schedule is different for baseball. It's different for basketball. It's different for football. So I'm very structured. I do a lot of planning. I try to stay consistent on the sport. Because I'm older, health is always a concern. So how I take care of myself is pivotal. Because as you get older, injuries, they stick around longer. So I try to take care of myself. Rest is important, but I think planning for me is critical. I look at film at the same time, same days. I'm very structured, especially in football. Basketball, because I work in the high school and the college level, I'm working 6 days a week. Baseball, more. Football is a little bit different because you're working 1 or 2 times a week. So the planning and the structure is different depending on the sport. One thing I learned from Jon's dad, Jon Doden, and Jim's one of my mentors. He used to never tell you got something wrong, but this is the way he used to challenge, I know, myself and other officials that he mentored. He would always say, "What'd you see on that play? What'd you see in that situation? How would you have handled that situation different?" He might have been telling you got it wrong, or he might have been telling you got it right, but he was always challenging you to analyze a situation. And that carries on with your business life and your personal life, because I think life is a constant evaluation of kind of where you're at on things. The other thing is, all 3 sports I work is vastly different. And I think Chad would speak to that too with hockey. Hockey's probably the hardest sport to officiate. It's fast. You're on skates. So I think it's important that you bring a different mentality depending on the sport that you're working, because it takes a different mentality to officiate each of these sports. I think the other thing is you're as good as your last call. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, but you're as good as your last call. So you got to constantly do things to get better. You might not move as fast as you once did or as quick, so you got to improve on your positioning. So the thing I like about officiating, it's all about continuous improvement. And that helps you in your personal life. And that's the biggest thing I would tell guys about that, want to get into officiating. It will help you in other things in your life, just not officiating a sport, but it will carry on to other things in your life. And I think that's critical because life today is challenging. It's a challenging environment that we're in. And I think officiating can help you in your personal life.
Your last call Friday night was spot on. That you had that lightning detected at 3.5 miles and shut the game right.
Yeah, that's how good my eyes are. I can see the sun, and the sun is 10 million miles away. So think about that. That's how good my eyes are.
You guys probably all have stories about reffing and in different sports and stuff, but what do you see? You talk about the reward, but what is, besides possibly the planning and everything, what is one of the most difficult things that you guys have with reffing right now?
Oh, that's a good one. I tell you, dealing with coaches is different today than it was 10, 20 years ago. There is more cooperation with coaches in dealing with them. There was a time in all these sports, friction was just going to happen. But I see a more cooperation, both at the high school level and the college level. It's made our jobs, I think, a little bit easier. The scrutiny now with video, as Joe was saying, 30 years ago, we never saw video. Now we get video. The scrutiny is always there because we're in a business that you either got it right, it's either correct or incorrect. And I think the other thing is probably the hardest thing is you got to be willing to take feedback. You got to be willing to get criticized. and learn from that feedback. I think that's the only way you get better. So, fortunately, the guys that I've been with the last several years, we have open dialogue, we have open feedback. Guys welcome that. But I think that's one of the things that you always got to be challenged with.
Tosh, I'll jump in here. I think one of the difficulties, because I think that's what your question was, a difficulty that we kind of encounter, correct? Yeah. For me to answer your question, me being a crew chief, it would be, maybe I would say athletic. I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but athletic directors and having athletic directors and maybe, those people that should be responding to emails and when they eventually do respond to emails, and give me the information I need for a high school game, for a college game, then actually having those individuals follow through on what they say they are going to do on a Friday night, meet us at the school, let us into the school, get us into a locker room, walk us out onto the field, and at halftime walk us into the locker room, and those types of things. Sometimes I'm going to be honest, athletic directors do not follow through. They're not there. They're not walking. Yeah. They're not doing what they should be doing. I know those individuals are busy. And just kind of those things also just maybe the respect that officials deserve. Something little as having water in the locker room for us when we're there, or water in the locker room at halftime, or a Gatorade. Yeah. Or like a little bite to eat for after the game because we're running around, and hot dog, a hamburger, or something like that. You just don't always get that as an official. Yeah. And Tosh, payment too. I know we said we don't really officiate for the money, but sometimes payment is hard to track down at times. You don't get paid until 2, 3, 4 weeks later, and you all of a sudden get a direct deposit in your checking account. You're like, what game is this from? I worked this game 4 or 5 weeks ago. So those types of things, the respect officials deserve is not always present.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this stuff that, for at least us on this call that are difficulties, a lot of it, for the most part, is stuff that we really can't control.
Sure.
We've all been doing, some of these sports long enough where whatever happens on the field or the playing surface, whatever sport you're doing, the players and coaches, you've done it long enough where you kind of have figured out how to respond to whatever situation it might be.
Okay.
So there really can't be anything that a coach or player can do or say that is really going to impact me all that much, just because, we've been doing it for so long. But to Jon's point, a lot of it is, just stuff that you can't control. And I know, especially these high schools and the smaller schools, they got a million other things they're trying to do, and it's week 1 and 2 and they haven't had a home game yet, and you have a new athletic director.
Sure.
And but at the same point, you kind of need officials to have the game too. And so it's just kind of some of those things. And something to work off of Steve's point as well, that I've noticed, not every coach has mentioned it, and not that we're looking to get positive feedback and stuff, and everyone clap our hands for us, but there's actually been a couple coaches that have thanked, me and some of the other crewmates for being there, primarily on Thursdays, because I think it's gotten to the point now, because we're having these Thursday games, people are starting to realize there's not enough crews for all these schools to be playing on Fridays. That's just the state that we're in. And so that traditional Friday night lights type thing, that I don't really see that coming back anytime soon, because we're not gaining more crews. every single year.
Right.
If anything, it's the complete opposite. And I really hope it doesn't get to the point where we're having to work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday routinely for high school because there's not enough crews to even work Thursday. But I think it has gotten to that point where now that we're having to play games on a day that's traditionally not before football, people are starting to open up their eyes and thinking, oh, we're actually having to do this because no one wants to potentially get into this, profession for a multiple of reasons,
right.
Which we can talk about or not, depending on timing here. But, I think that's been certainly an eye opener for some. Others are just, potentially oblivious to it. But I think a few now it's starting to click, which is encouraging to see.
Yeah. Well, Chet, I think you bring up a point that I know I wanted to get to. And as long as you brought it up, I know I didn't get a comment from each and every one of you, but it is the reffing situation. I know in hockey at the youth level, they retain about 50% of their first year refs. How does that look in the other sports that you're all involved with as well?
Yeah, it's very similar in all the sports. I think I heard a stat that now the average age of a football official is 60. That seems pretty high, but I guess I'm not real surprised. I did a signing for lacrosse, the high school lacrosse for the last few years, and it was most of that job was basically trying to change the schedule and move game times around because you're shuffling the same handful of officials around. There's just not enough officials. And football's the same thing. Chad's right. That's why they're playing Thursday. That's why they're playing, they still play Friday, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's games on Saturdays coming up. There's just not enough crews out there. And I know with Steve in New Mexico, Steve, it's even worse down there.
Yeah, I mean, I work down in Texas and New Mexico. All three sports have major issues. All the sports have major issues. And here's where the difference is. 35 years ago, if you got into football, you might work your first varsity football game after 7 years, working JV freshman ball. Today, you can sign up for football, and chances are you're going to work a varsity game within the first 2 weeks. That's same in baseball, football, and basketball.
You should ask Chad because
I think,
Chad, I don't know how many lower level games you worked for football before you had your first varsity game with us. I don't know, maybe you worked a couple years, but I don't know.
I mean that's where we're at now, and the crews are getting older. We can't get the young guy, and there's a couple reasons why. Anybody under 30 right now really never got yelled at. It's a different society. It's a different world. When I grew up, we did what we were told to do. Coaches were gods. I played under 3 Hall of Fame coaches at Appleton West.
Yeah.
You did what you were told to do. It's a different world now. Officials, young people now want that instant gratification. They want to get paid now. They want to work varsity now. It's just a different society. And quite frankly, the young person doesn't want to deal with any of these issues, getting yelled at or whatever. And that's the challenges that we face right now in all sports. And, if you look at Friday night football, it was the place to be. Now attendance is down. There's less and less kids playing football. There's less and less kids playing sports. It's just a different world. And I think one of the challenges that we face as an officiating group in the United States, we got to change with the times a lot quicker. And one of the things I've always been a proponent on is a couple things. One, you should get paid that night. That young person wants to get paid now. The second thing is, if you're playing basketball, you shouldn't have to go to gym class, but you should have to take a class on Basketball 101, because that's the best chance we have to get a guy or a lady. They're playing basketball at high school. They might not play at the college, but they still want to stay in the game. And they learn the rules in a high school class atmosphere. Right. But I'm telling you, we're at a point now, in 5 years from now, you're going to see varsity games on Monday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday. You're already seeing varsity games being played on Sundays in different sports. But you will see some radical things in the next 5 to 7 years that will change the landscape of high school, not only high school, but also college. But you could see where it's going. It's going to be like speed to market. You got to make the necessary changes because there are going to be, just like in Roswell, New Mexico, they canceled over 60 varsity games last year in all their sports. They had to make them up. Down here, when you work high school basketball, you work the varsity ladies first, and then you work the varsity men second. And sometimes you might have to do the JV game before that. That's 3 games. You never did that. Down here, you're working doubleheader football games. We got varsity games that start at 10:30 at night. So things that you never thought about 5 years ago, you're going to see. Like Chad was saying, they're playing football Thursday, Friday, Saturday now. What's to say they're not going to start playing Monday, Tuesday? It's coming. It's going to have to.
And I will say, there's a lot of people trying to prevent this from happening. Just here in Green Bay, we have our Green Bay Officials Association. We have a committee that's kind of been resurrected for football. The point behind this committee is to help train, help recruit, give people more tools such as film and video to help everyone get better. I know there's a few of us that are planning on going to a few practices to talk to teams, things like that, because we don't do that, the numbers certainly will decline because it's true. I mean, what teenager wants to go ref a youth game, especially hockey, which I've seen certainly change over my 20 plus years being in rinks. If I were starting right now, I probably wouldn't want to stick around for a whole season because of the verbal abuse and social media. That was all stuff we didn't have in the early 2000s when I first started. So I was lucky I kind of started then versus now. But I think people are starting to realize that there needs to be more cooperation and understanding that without officials, you're not going to have these games. And athletic directors and coaches asking what can we do to get more people into this. And I think we just need, as officials and these associations, need to just do a little better job and try to build some of these relationships where we can get some of these kids who might not be playing at the college level, or even some that do. Maybe they're playing football, but they played basketball growing up as well. And that could be a good side job. If we can really start to rebuild that base and interest and have the cooperation from the ADs and the coaches and the parents, I think we can kind of prevent some of this gloom and doom that could be out there. So, it could go either way, but trying to be more optimistic that there's, a lot of people, a lot of good conversations and things happening to try to get people back into this. And if we can continue to do that, hopefully we can get back to a point where we're just playing on Fridays.
Yeah, Chad, you're absolutely right and well said. And, I would add to this, it's challenging being an official, but there is no better feeling than stepping on a field, being part of the action on a Friday night. I mean, that rush, that high, and then working a good game, going in the locker room and fist bumping for a good game and having that satisfaction. Again, that's something, if it doesn't matter what age you are, you can be a teenager, your 20s or 30s, but you'll appreciate football, basketball, whatever sport you officiate. You look at that sport a completely different way. It's a new way of looking at a sport. It's a feeling that you really can't get in other places in life and just be a part of the action. And it's just, you got to try it. You really do. It's easy to sit in the stands and criticize. Just put yourself out there in an uncomfortable situation, and it's life-changing.
My son has talked about doing youth sports, and when he's reffed hockey, he's 17-year-old doing 13-year-old like peewee and bantam, and he would talk about how the coaches would just yell at him on every single call. Parents, is it worse at the youth level, and does it get a little better as you move up into the high school and collegiate level?
Yeah.
100% youth is the most difficult with parents.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's not even close.
Youth sports is a different problem.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been to a youth hockey game, a year or two, but when I do randomly walk through a rink and stuff, it's like I said, if I were starting right now, even at 32 years old, I don't know if I would have the thick enough skin as a new official to, continue. And we have to understand this isn't every single game. Most of the games go through, just fine. But it's a few of the bad apples that you will eventually run into if you work enough that can really ruin it, which is incredibly unfortunate because then we get to the situation with the number of people doing this that we're currently in. But you move up into the high school level, then it's a little more organized might be the wrong word, but now you have an athletic director that you're working under. You have the WIAA, the state association that you're working under. Then you go to the collegiate level. Then you have conferences and the NCAA. So there's, a little more, a bigger penalty, I guess, for some of the behavior issues, especially for players and coaches. Fans, it's kind of tough to control and say they can't come to their next kid's game, stuff like that. But for whatever reason it is, you have 8-year-old Johnny or Susie out there and everyone thinks that they're going to the Stanley Cup and they're going to be in the Hall of Fame. And most of them won't be, but how we change that culture and why that kind of dissipates the older they get, I'm not quite sure, but it's too bad because you have the younger games. Odds are you're going to have younger, more fragile officials out there who don't have the experience, one, just with the rules in working games, but how do you handle these irate parents and coaches? You have a rule book that you can enforce things, but they've never been put in that situation before. And it could be the third game they've ever done. And they're trying to learn. So it's interesting. You think it'd kind of be the opposite, but for whatever reason, the youth seems to be the most difficult.
Mm-hmm. You agree, Joe?
I do. Yeah, I concur.
Tosh, I'm not going to disagree with you guys. I would just say that at the youth level, Tosh, what I've tried to do is when the kids come out for that coin toss for the games I work, I tried. Usually a coach comes with them, right, Joe? Usually a coach is out there with those captains.
Yes.
And I don't do this every single game, but I kind of know some of the schools where, the coaches might not be that knowledgeable about football and know the rules. And once we have the coin toss, I might say to those coaches, maybe after the kids leave, just have a little talk with the coaches. Tell those coaches, hey, I don't want to hear anything from you guys today. The kids, these are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. They're out here to have fun. They're out here to learn. I'm not going to throw my flag on every single play. We will get the big ones. Don't worry. We know what we're doing out here. But I'm also going to help your kids, and this is what I said before, help your kids learn how to play football. Teach your kids a little bit out here on the field today as well.
Yeah, and there are some leagues, and there's some leagues that are better than others. My experience, you get into when parents pay more for their kids to play, you tend to get a lot of unruliness, whether that's AAU basketball, whether that's summer lacrosse. Sure, some of I don't know how it is in hockey, but I don't know if parents just feel way more entitled at certain ages when they're spending more. But that is really the worst of the worst.
The other thing I would just say about the higher levels, then, Tosh, is those coaches are wanting to win to keep their coaching positions. They can get like Joe just said, unruly from time to time, and they can get loud and they can yell, and it even it goes a step up at the Division III college level. Those coaches are fighting for their jobs. They want to win football games because they want to stay as the coach at that particular school, and maybe they have aspirations of moving up to a Division II school, or even possibly to a Division I school, like a Lance Leopold. He started at Whitewater Division III, and look at where he is now. He's doing a great job, I believe, at Buffalo University.
Yeah.
So I know these guys, and overall I agree that the youth, you can get a lot of unruly coaches and think they know more than you do, and fans yelling from the stands. But I also see it at the high school level and at the college level as well. Maybe not to that point, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
Definitely different challenges at different levels for sure. And different sports even too.
You guys have all talked about your experiences. And we've talked about some of the difficulties, but let's talk about some of the rewards. What are some really good things
that's a good one, Tosh,
that have come about because of reffing, because of the things that you do?
I think life skills, how to handle people, how to build relationships, how to be part of a team. There's a lot of rewards. How to organize yourself, time management. You're learning a craft that demands you to continue to get better. And like Joe was saying earlier, there's nothing better than working a great game. That satisfaction, So I think there's a lot of life lessons you can take from this.
The rewards, Tosh, could be endless. They could be endless.
Yeah, communication skills, the ability to work under high pressure situations, being able to keep your cool. They often say when, there's chaos or a fire, you're the one to put it out and calm everyone down. So there's not a whole lot of jobs where you can get that experience on day one, like going out to officiate a game. Teamwork, you're not working by yourself. It's a crew, depending on, every sport. So yeah, I agree with Jon. You could name out a skill and we would be able to find a way to pinpoint it to one of these sports and how you have to manage a game with not only kids, but adults as well.
Well, I was going to take this to, as a reward, the actual, the games you're assigned, high school work in a state tournament, a championship game is a huge reward. Very satisfying to be assigned a state tournament in Wisconsin. You get to go to Camp Randall where the Badgers play and work a game. It's the
playoff assignments.
So sometimes a level 4 playoff assignment is just as good as working a state game. And then being at an event like that with your crewmates and just kind of seeing the smile on their face, and like Joe working his first state tournament game with me back in 2019.
Yes.
I think that was the first one, right, Joe? And we had the Division II game. We did a phenomenal job, and seeing the smile on guys' faces too is a reward for me when it's their first time there.
Yeah, the experiences, Tosh, are incredible. We've kind of touched on it, but like Jon said, I mean, who gets to run around Camp Randall, or even, we were fortunate the other night to work a big high school game locally, and it's on TV and you have the excitement and the lights are on. I mean, those are experiences that most people don't really get to do. And we put a lot of work to put ourselves in that position, but that's the reward, is to work those big games, get the big, get the playoff assignments that you're hoping for. I mean, that's the payoff for us. And that means we've done a good job.
Yeah, Steve, I think you brought up a good point. And being an educator, I was kind of thinking of this. We do offer a lot of classes and things for kids, but you're right. I mean, how great would it be that if you offered a football reffing class as a half credit during football season, a basketball reffing class as a half credit, get WIAA involved? That might be the only thing that saves where we are today at this point, is to somehow get that involvement back into the high school, so we get these kids doing some reffing, doing some things that help them understand the game as well.
I mean, that's where you hook them while they're playing. And if you can get a young person out there officiating and you can get them to survive that first year and get them to come back that second year, then they're on that journey. It's getting them hooked. It's getting them to survive that first year and, getting them hooked up with a mentor, and then their career is on its way. And that's going to be the key to the future of officiating. Because we have a lot of young guys that we officiate, and those guys are going to be officiating for the next 30 years because they're hooked. They're committed. They're there. But just getting those young guys to come out, or those young ladies to come out, and once you get them out, they can get through that first year, then they're on their way. And that's the thing we've really got to be promoting. Just get out here, get your feet wet. We're going to help you. And then you can have a long career. The education now for a young official now is incredible. From manuals to video to a lot of educational tools, stuff we didn't have 30, 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. We just didn't have it. And now there's a really solid structure now. Somebody can come in and learn in so many ways of how to officiate a certain sport. It's a journey, and we just got to hook enough people, and we get out of this situation because we need officials, and it starts with the young people.
I know USA Hockey does a really good job with their online presence. I know I've watched my son take the modules and stuff. Is there something like that as far as football and volleyball, YouTube maybe, baseball and those sports that offer the same type of thing?
Yeah, pretty much all the sports. They YouTube's incredible, and some associations are better than others, but I would guarantee whatever sport you're working there's an association out there that has good YouTube content for you to really accelerate your learning. There's a strong local group of officials that really do train. I mean, Chad's up in Green Bay, and that group, I mean, that was my very first time on a football field was through the Green Bay Association. They taught me how to blow a Fox 40 and throw a flag in the air. I mean, it was that basic, but when you first step on a field, you need to learn that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and what people forget too is that, these teams, they have a full week of practice before the game. Our practice is the game. So unless you have the ability to maybe work a scrimmage before week one, there's really no opportunity for us to get additional snaps either before the season or even in season, because you're just volunteering your time to go show up at a practice and hope they're running some 11 on 11 or something like that. So it makes it even more difficult to, get that extra practice because it's really not available outside of just before the season starts. And then once week one hits, you maybe had 60 snaps in front of you, which is, maybe a quarter and a half for most games, maybe a half. We don't get to see a whole lot before the games start. And then we don't really see a whole lot in between each game.
I never answered your question. You asked about what is the hardest thing about officiating. And for me, and these guys have all touched on it, but it's that constant pressure to always either get your call right or get the no call right. But it's every snap, you always have that pressure to make that judgment. And that you get used to it and you understand how it works. But at the end of the day, that is the hardest thing about officiating is that decision of, is that a flag? Is that not a flag?
And when you get a decision wrong, Joe, we are the ones that feel the worst about it more than anyone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. People don't realize that.
The hardest call to blow is when you apply a rule wrong. Penalty enforcement, anything that you apply a rule on that it was under your control. those are the ones that just stick with you. A penalty enforcement that's black and white, man, those things linger for you for a long time.
Kind of like a hold during a kickoff, right? You don't re-kick.
Right. But then it goes back to life lessons that we keep talking about. You know, I think the other thing why guys should go or ladies should go out and officiate, you meet a cast of characters in the journey. All officials come from different walks of life. And so you deal with a lot of different personalities, a lot of unique people. You learn a lot from these unique people because there are a lot of these people are different than you. But that's one perspective. I tell you, the relationships that I've had for years and years of people that I got to meet, got to spend time on a basketball court or a baseball field or a football field. Those are lifelong relationships. And all the learnings that you learn from other people that come from, I never worked with a guy who works at the post office. So I asked that guy millions of questions about the post office for a half an hour last week because I never knew anybody that worked at a post office, which I think is so cool. So, you know, John's a teacher. I never met a weatherman. Chad was a weatherman. Like, are you kidding me? That's the biggest reason I would tell people. It's a journey of people that you're going to meet in all walks of life. That's why you should be an official.
Well, I think you just bring up another point that people, when you're sitting in a Friday night or, you know, whatever game you're at, you're sitting in the stands, you're a parent, you don't realize or you don't think about that official out there has a job that's 40 plus hours a week besides everything they're doing to try to give your kids an experience that is going to give them skills for the rest of their life as well. And you don't think about that. You don't think about, oh, these people they're people too. They have stories and they have journeys as well.
Agreed.
You know, it's something about when you put on the uniform, people look at you differently. It's like being a police officer. They put that police officer uniform on, you just look at them differently. It's the same thing with officiating.
It's true.
It's something that I've accepted years ago. People are just going to look at you different. They're going to raise that standard. It's one of the few jobs in the world that you're expected to be perfect on day one.
That's true.
And that's not reality, but that's just an expectation people have. You know, we're all looking for that perfect game. Someday we might reach that, but, you know.
I think Jerry Davis said you have a 100% chance of being 50% wrong every time you make a call.
Well, I want to put you guys, each of you, kind of on a hot seat here. So whoever wants to go first on this one, Ken, what's one of the funniest things that you've experienced as a ref?
The funniest.
I'll let you guys go first. There's a few.
Oh, man.
Well, it's certainly I have one, and we just talked about it the other night.
Try and keep it G-rated here.
Exactly, kids show. Mr. Liddell,
Yeah.
We should keep a counter on how many times he has to hit the head here before the game. And where was that? Was Sturgeon Bay or Door County or somewhere?
Yeah, so Sturgeon
It was
Bay,
between quarters.
we're at the we're toward the end of the first quarter, and
He had to take a leak.
I gotta go to the bathroom. So that first quarter ends, I sprint.
You get 1 minute, Tosh, between quarters.
1 minute. And I made it back. But you know, I worked pro baseball for a lot of years, and I remember one time I'm in West Texas. I'm working the plate, and the next thing I know, I see this person running across the center field with no clothes on. They never caught the guy, but streaked across the center field about 15 years ago, went into the stands, and ran out of the stadium. I don't know what all happened, but I'll never forget that. Because you're not quite sure what you're actually seeing, but you're seeing it. You know, and one time a guy came out on me, screaming at me, and he says, you got to toss me because we're getting beat badly. And I says, no, I'm not going to toss you because you're going to have to live this nightmare with me. And then he walked away. You know, you have different characters that you deal with. Coaches say stuff to you that make you laugh. Just things happen before. So those are things that you just, you do it long enough, you'll see different things.
Yeah, Tosh, that's a tough one to answer. Joe brought up a good one there though. He brought up a good one with Steve. Steve's one of a kind, like we said at the beginning.
Oh boy!
Right here's a classic.
Here we go.
This had to deal with John's dad. John's dad was a stickler, basic, boom, boom, boom. One of the best officials of all time. Playoff game. We leave the footballs in the locker room. We kick off. We have no footballs except the one football. The old man, we don't tell him because he would have gone nuts. But we played the first 2 series of that game with one football, and then finally we got the footballs back in from the locker room.
I'll tell you what, Tosh. This may not be the funniest thing. This may not be the funniest thing for me, but I think the rest of you will enjoy this. I just thought of this. My first ever, I'm pretty sure it was my first ever Division III college game. And I was on the supplemental list, so that just means I was filling in on a crew. I was one of the deep wing officials, but at UW Oshkosh, out on the field before, but we go into the locker room, 10 minutes before kickoff, and I have to go to the bathroom. I take my flag and my beanbag out of my pants so, they don't fall into the toilet. And I set them on, I think, like this vent in the UW Oshkosh officials locker room. I don't put them back on. I don't put them back in my pants. My first ever Division III college football game, I started it without having a beanbag, without having a flag. I had to ask someone on the sideline and say, hey, I don't have my flag. I don't have my beanbag. And I knew exactly where they were. Can you go into the officials' locker room and grab them for me really quick so I have what I need to have out here on the field?
That's real fear.
Yeah. I didn't have a backup flag in my back pocket. Now I always take a second flag with me. But at that time, I did not have a backup flag. Luckily, I don't know how many series went by, but I think a couple series went by where I didn't have it. But whoever I asked to go back into the locker room and grab it, they came through. And I don't think anyone knew, except for myself and that one individual.
John, we can laugh about this now, but your dad's last state tournament, and I took his spot after that game.
Oh, God.
He got trucked on the opening play, didn't he? And went flying.
So this was, I think, 2013. But I'll tell you guys, growing up, my friends in high school, they called my dad Jim Dandy. They called him Dandy. If we did something wrong, if we had a party and, my mom and dad were out of town and I had friends over and they found out, he would get heated. They called him Jim Dandy. They called him Dandy. And I guess where I'm going with this is Joe's right. In that state tournament game, I was the white hat. That was my first state tournament game, championship game. I was white hat, and my dad was the umpire. Well, the umpire for football is in the defensive backfield, and he just got ran over. And this is when he's like probably 60 years old. He just got ran over, and I give him credit. He popped right up. But to this very day, when I hang out with my friends from high school, and I'm still very good friends with a lot of my high school buddies, they always want me to pop in the DVD, the DVD that my mom bought me from the championship game, so they can see my dad get run over and tumble over and do a backwards somersault. Yep.
Jim Dandy with a somersault.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, it seems like, all the real, you forget a lot of the games, but the experiences you have with your crews and people that you're traveling with and stuff, have a lot more of those memories versus playoff games, for either sport or, big rivalry games. But when I was still working youth hockey, 7-8 years ago, we have our clinics that we have to go to for USA Hockey each year. And I stopped at the gas station, whatever, and had a extra large soda or whatever. And we were in classrooms. So a lot of these clinics are just at a local high school or something like that. And so we have, little desks, and we're taking the test, and I turn wrong, and there goes this huge, thing full of soda all over my test, all over the floor. Well, obviously that's embarrassing because now everyone's looking at you while they're trying to take their test, and it's supposed to be quiet and everything. Well, one of the instructors at the time who was in the classroom had some pretty high connections with the folks at UW-Madison. Well, a couple weeks later, it just happened to be my first Division I hockey game at Madison. And so I get into the locker room at the Kohl Center, and there's this massive box of like baby sippy cups that had my name on it, and it said, "Try not to spill anything in here. Welcome to the big leagues," or something like that. I don't know who was all behind that, if it was the coach or equipment manager or whoever, but I'm nervous going into my first college game, and it's kind of nice to have someone lighten the mood a little bit. And I knew right away that that's what the joke was when I opened the box and, see all these little sippy cups and bottles that a baby would use. So I'm not spilling anything in their locker room.
No, I was just going to ask, Steve brought up a coach coming and saying, "Hey, you got to kick me out. We're getting crushed. I don't want to be here anymore. I got to do something." Have any of you guys had that experience as well? A coach just saying, "My team needs to be fired up. Kick me out. I'm not going to say anything to you, but just kick me out."
Here's the best part. You see some of these coaches enough, and especially at the college level, you start to know when, if they're getting their butt kicked or something's irking them, that they are miserable being behind the bench, and they're doing everything they can to get kicked out. But that the worst thing that they want to happen is to stay behind that bench for the rest of the game. So, everything in the rule book and all your training and everything that, people say you need to get rid of this problem. You kind of get that game management. And if you're able to, keep them around, sometimes keeping them behind a bench is more of a punishment versus just sending them to the locker room a little bit early. That's not everybody, and you really have to know your time and place to do something like that. But, it's, at least for me, it's been used a few times, especially for hockey, because the interaction between hockey and football coaches, while there are a lot of similarities, there's also definitely some big time differences on how the rules can be applied and, things like that. But, it's always kind of funny because eventually they start to pick up on what you're doing. And, it's just kind of interesting to see how long they can stay upset.
I mean, officiating's it's just dealing with people, Tosh. It's relationships. It's how you build with people. You get a reputation as an official. You get a reputation as a crew. There's a lot of times we walk on the field, you could tell a coach is happy to see us. Or you go to a basketball court or a baseball field, when you're welcome versus when you're not welcome. And so to me, it's how you deal with situations. It's how you deal with people. That's the biggest thing that officiating taught me, is how to deal with people and deal with situations. I always tell young officials, know the spirit of the rule, know when to throw your flag, when not to throw your flag, when to handle the business, handle it the right way. Take care of your business off the court or off the field is just as important as how you handle your business on the field. It's just deal with other human beings, plain and simple. And, that's what officiating is all about. And that's what it teaches you. Because when you go out in the business world or you go out and teach or whatever you do, and, when you're not officiating, those are skill sets you've got to have to be successful in your life. As I get older, intelligence to me is overstated. It's how you deal with people. how you react to people, how you react to situations. And that's the biggest thing that, this journey of officiating is given me and what I've seen it give to others.
No, I agree. We enjoy the journey, right?
Always enjoy the journey.
What's one piece of advice? I mean, you've given a lot of advice throughout this hour and a half. What's one piece of advice that you want to give people out there who might be thinking about coming into reffing? One thing that you think is like a gold piece of advice from you.
Just do it. Start. Do it. Get yourself a mentor and just do it.
I was just gonna say, try to get a mentor.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
Always remember this. The greatest risk that you take in life is the one that you don't do. The other thing is, it's who you marry, okay? And for us married guys, we've already taken the biggest risk. So jump into officiating. It's a journey. You'll love it. You'll have your ups and downs. But at the end of the day, you'll thank Uncle Steve, okay?
On that, thank you guys so much. This was great.
No problem.
Thank you, Uncle Steve.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, here's your favorite segment and our favorite segments. I say that sarcastically because we really screwed it up to begin with, and we're working our way to figure out what it really truly is. We're in the forgotten, and never forgetting.
Hey, we got it.
Wow.
We're never forgetting. We're never
Yeah.
forgetting, Tosh.
Never forgetting. So the forgotten and never forgetting, like I said, it's fun because you never know what you're going to get. And I think we have some good ones. I have a couple. Yeah, they kind of hit home a little bit. They're kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
Well, why don't you start us off, Tosh? What do you have?
All right. Forgot. So my son, when he was young, my wife grew up on a farm. And so my oldest son showed pigs at the Calumet County Fair. And I went to the Manitowoc County Fair with Will on Thursday to watch my nephew show a steer. And I want to tell you, I am sure glad that none of my kids show animals anymore. You think sports are stressful and things like that, but fair prep and cleaning your animal and the stress of your kid showing an animal in the rink and having to do well so it sells, that's something that I want to forget because that was a stressful weekend.
Oh, I believe it. So is that a year? How long are they carrying for the animal to lead up to showing?
So pigs usually are bought in the spring and you raise it through the summer and you do the fair. But when you're talking about a steer, you're getting it the summer before and you are working with it all winter, all summer. And so my nephew Dylan, his steer was 1,400 pounds.
Dang. So when he shows it, what do you win? Like, what's the ultimate? What are you hoping for?
You're hoping for grand champion,
okay,
which means that you have the best steer in the entire fair. And then you have reserve grand champion, which is the second best. So he actually did really well. And his weight class was the grand champion. So when that animal was named grand champion, they brought him back in with his steer Jerry, and he got a chance to be for reserve grand champion. So he was in the top 4 for those animals this year. So his first time doing it. So pretty proud of him. It was pretty awesome to see him in the rink doing that.
So I'm afraid to ask what happens to Jerry.
Jerry gets bought. He goes to the butcher.
Okay.
And makes some tasty meals for people.
I got you. I love Jerry. Well, that's good for him. I love that.
Yeah. But it's stressful for the kids. It's stressful for the parents. It's stressful for the grandparents. It's pretty much stressful for everybody. So
it sounds that way. That's I know you've been doing that for a lot of years, and that's who knew that? That is awesome. That's I can feel the stress in the voice for sure. Well, Tosh,
What do you got, Joe?
yeah, it's forgotten, and I'm kind of sad that it's forgotten, but summer's almost forgotten. We're heading into Labor Day weekend, and the sun's setting a little bit earlier, and although it has been warm this last week, it's going to start to get crisper at night, and leaves are going to change. We're going to head into fall, and it's a great time of year for sure. But I'm going to miss summer. The older I get, the more I just like the warm weather, and I hate to say, summer's kind of forgotten.
Yeah, you know what? It kind of is. We're in that last big weekend now, the last big week before the official. It's not the official, but we kind of consider it the official end of summer.
Right.
Even though it's not until September 21st, which is the equinox. But this is the last big week of summer and the last big weekend. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And it almost seems like the way football is right now, that almost marks the end of summer for some reason. It's just a hard stop.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
Football has a grip on us, that is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a good time of the year, though. I like fall. I like the changes that take place, and a little bit cooler at night, have a nice fire outside, different things like that. So.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Well, now we're never forgetting.
Yes, I'm never forgetting.
And so you've been through this once. I have never been through this. So my never forgetting is my son going off to college on Wednesday.
Yeah.
He goes to UW-Oshkosh, first year. And I'll tell you what, this is my first kid going away to school. And I don't, it's been 18 years. And, I'm going to miss him. I know he's not that far away, but I'm going to miss not having him at home, talking to him after work and after school and practices and things like that. I got Ethan yet. Got 4 more years of high school with Ethan, so that softens the blow a little bit. But yeah, the first one is always a little difficult.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, everybody says it. It's 100% true. The time just flies by. It really does. You can't believe you're at this point. And yes, if you look at it, it's a change in relationship with your son. It's a different stage. It's a great stage, but yeah, there's nothing like just having a kid at home. Yeah, it really isn't. It takes a lot of getting used to, and I don't know if you ever get used to it, but I feel.
Yeah, I don't think you do.
No,
but
no.
Yeah, definitely a change. So yeah, that's what I'm not going to forget those times I've had with Will. And, we start a new journey now, a new story.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
And we put our part in for the last 18 years. Now he gets to move forward and make his own story and his own journey. So that's really cool.
Well, Tosh, my never forgetting is that this episode has been all about officials. Being an official, I love it. And one of our sayings, and I've applied this to life, one of our sayings right before we take our positions before the opening kickoff, we always bump fists and say, enjoy the journey. And I'm just never forgetting that. I try to apply that to life, to just enjoy the journey.
That's awesome, because that's kind of what we've been talking about as well, right?
Yes.
I think Tim, go back a few episodes, Tim Landwehr posted what was great about the interview, and what he really enjoyed was the fact that it wasn't necessarily about a book that they wrote. It wasn't necessarily about the fish that he caught. It was about his journey through life to where he was.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what you're talking about. That's what this podcast is all about too.
It's
about the journey.
Enjoy the journey. Well, with that, folks, it's forgotten, and I'm never forgetting. I think we got it right. Well, anyway.
I think so.
All right, Tash.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners. We have a pretty cool throwback that really kind of ties right in with the episode when we look at officiating and the state of officiating in not only the state of Wisconsin, but also the entire country. We're going to take a look at NFL referee Jerry Markbreit, which is pretty incredible career. And Joe is right. When you see a picture of Jerry, you are going to know exactly who he was.
Yes. Nobody knows who he is until you see his picture. That is for sure. We were lucky enough in 1990 at the Red Smith Banquet to have Jerry Markbreit join us as the main speaker, and he was still an NFL referee back then. So he was, big time. And The white hat gets a lot of face time in an NFL game.
Yeah, and you look at his accolades: 4 Super Bowls, 10 divisional games, 8 conference championship games. I mean, that's a career right there. That's pretty incredible. And that doesn't even go back to all the, he reffed high school games, he reffed college games in the Big Ten.
Right.
So yeah, this is a pretty well-rounded person that you're going to be able to listen to and his experiences.
Yeah, he is an enjoyable, he's a professional speaker. He is excellent at that craft. And I've always enjoyed somebody that can just really speak and tell great stories. And you'll get that out of Jerry. It's a lot of great officiating stories. I tell you, he's, you see it all. You're right out there in the action. And with that comes a lot of great stories.
Yeah. And speaking of great stories, he's also written 3 books.
Yeah.
So, if you enjoy this and you enjoy his interview with the Red Smith Awards, go check out his books as well.
Red Smith Sports Awards. Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin, and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Okay, here we go. A referee. He only has 6 other friends. They're all wearing the same uniforms. And then he has his own family, so he has a few more friends. And once in a while, the winning coach might smile at him. Jerry Markbreit is a National Football League referee. Prior to his current position as a ref in the National Football League, he was a football official in the Big Ten from 65 to 75. He joined the National Football League in 76 as a line judge, and since 78 has worked numerous postseason assignments, including 2 Super Bowls. Here's Jerry.
At last. I almost couldn't get out of that seat. It's a great pleasure to be here, to be with all these dignitaries. Willie, who saved me on Super Bowl 21. Coach Infante, who has always been very nice to me. I knew he was happy when he saw me come in to work the Dallas game this year. I was filling in for another referee who was ill, and I could see in his eyes that he knew he was going to win, because I haven't had a game that he's lost since he's been here. But he said some bad things tonight. That seeing eye dog story hurt me. I want to assure him that I will be here many times next year. Being a referee is kind of a minor celebrity role. I walked in here tonight, a few people recognized me, but most people looked at me. They didn't ask for my autograph here. They came by here. They asked Don. They wanted Coach Infante. They wanted Willie. Who's that guy sitting next to Sutton? Gee, he looks familiar, but I don't know who he is. You see, that's the way it is with a referee. I was in the men's room at O'Hare Field not too long ago, minding my own business, washing my hands, when I saw the guy behind me looking at me in the mirror. He looked from one side to the other. Finally, he nodded and went. I acknowledged it with a nod without turning. He patted me on the back and I walked out. That's the kind of recognition we get. They really don't know who we are. It's kind of fun that way. Now, I know everybody wanted to ask me, they saw me working in the San Francisco NFC Championship game. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Who's going to win? Who's going to do it? I don't have any idea. I'm not an expert on football. I don't know how the Packers are going to do next year. I don't know who's going to win the game in 2 weeks. I'm an expert on officiating. I'm an expert on the rules of the game. Every time I tell a friend who I think's going to win, the other team wins. So I really don't even try. But I try to be the best I can be at officiating. I try to be perfect every game, and I have yet to escape without some mistake. Even tonight, sitting here, two innocent gentlemen walked up and said, listen, I don't want to insult you, but there was a call you made in the game Sunday. Why was Craig blown dead on that option pass? Can they have in the grasp on someone other than the quarterback? I said, no, but my body thought it was in the grasp. My mind said that his knee was on the ground, which it wasn't. And I'm still reliving that call. Fortunately, it had nothing to do with the game. But they wouldn't let me escape, even here at the Red Smith dinner. You know, in officiating, there are a lot of risks. You try to be the best you can be, but there are risks involved, and you can't escape. I try to go out there and be the best referee in the land. Sometimes things happen. In 1986, living in the Chicagoland area, in Bear Country, is there a single Bear fan here? My condolences to you Bear fans. I got a call from the league office early November. They said, look, we're going to give you your first Bear game. You have been in the league for 11 years, you've never worked one. It's late in the season, we're having a scheduling problem. They don't like you to work where you live. You live in the Chicago area, they keep you away from the Bears because, you know, if I made a bad call in that game, and they know I live in my own town, someone may come out and blow my house up. So they said, look, we're going to give you the Bear Green Bay game. It'll be a nothing game. Green Bay's only won 2 games. It was November '86, and I thought, gee, I'll have my crew out to my house for dinner. I'd never had them out to my house for dinner. It was terrific. My wife made a terrific dinner. We had everybody out, and it was a 12 o'clock kickoff. Typical dismal late November day, Soldier Field, drizzle, place stuffed to the gills, and the game started. Typical opening Green Bay Bear game. We had 8 major fouls in the first quarter. Then things quieted down. 2 minutes left in the second quarter when Jim McMahon rolled out to his right. This is the best town in the country to tell this story. He threw a pass right down the field. Now, as the referee, I don't watch the flight of the pass. I watch the quarterback. He's my guy, and I watch him no matter what. But I heard the crowd moan, and I knew the ball was intercepted. But I stood there watching as McMahon, head down, dejected, started walking slowly toward the sideline. When out of the corner of my eye, I saw number 94 Green Bay coming around Jim Covert, who'd been blocking him. He kept on coming, and I thought, he's going to stop. This play's over. 8, 9 seconds. 10, 11, 12. All of a sudden, here comes this Charles Martin. He runs up, he grabs McMahon, he picks him up, turns him over, and stuffs him head first into the ground. My flag hit the ground before McMahon did. I thought, brother, do I have one here? McMahon motionless, Martin on top of him. Martin pushes up and stands up, and Jim Covert, who'd seen this, came running from behind, and he hit him with everything he had right in the back, and down went Martin again. I looked at that thing, and I thought to myself, today, that is not a foul. It was obvious to me that Covert was protecting McMahon. Unfortunately, 2 of the other fellows on my crew flagged that foul. There were 3 flags on the ground when I heard a voice from my right. It was Ditka. Do I see 3 flags down? Yes, sir, I said. You always call him sir in Chicago. He said, does that mean you may have an offset? I said, it's possible. He said, if you do, you won't get out of here alive. By this time, Martin was up on his feet. I grabbed him by the arm. Now, we're not supposed to touch players. This guy's a good size. Not tremendous. Average 6'5", 275. I'm not standing in a hole up here. I'm 5'9", 185. I grabbed this guy by the arm. I said, fella, you're out of the game. Let's go. He looked at me. He said, I'm not going anywhere with you. I said, if you don't, they'll kill you. He said, in that case, let's go. A took him over to Forrest Gregg. I said, Coach, this man's out of the game. Get him out of here. Greg looked at me and said, what did he do? McMahon was still motionless. I got back out to the middle of the field. Ditka's out on the field. He walked over to me, put his arm on my shoulder. He said, look, kid. He said, I want to apologize for that threat. He said, I shouldn't have said that. He said, I want you to know that I've talked to my staff. We'll do everything in our power to get you guys out of here. He said, but if you offset, we still won't be successful. I walked him off the field. I said, Coach, we'll handle this. I talked the other two fellas into picking up their flags. We wound up with a disqualification. The Bears won 12-10. It was the worst violent act of the 1986 season. I didn't know whether I had done the right thing by ejecting this guy or not. Nobody, to my recollection, had ever been kicked out of the game for something other than a fight. The next day, the league office was very pleased. I got the highest grade you can get. I got a 7 on the call, and I also got the Super Bowl that year. I'm convinced that that call got me the edge for the Super Bowl. But the risk of making the wrong call in your home stadium was devastating to even think about. The risk of officiating in a situation like that could be absolutely the end of your career. So talk about risk. You know, when I walk out on the field, I feel like I'm 6'8", 280. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'll step in and break up a fight with the biggest guys in the business. I just feel like I'm that tough and strong out there. During Super Bowl 21, I was having a conversation with Rulon Jones in the middle of the field during a commercial. Jones is 6'9", about 270. And we had a really nice conversation. The next week, it was in Sports Illustrated. It was a picture of he and I. My head came up to the bottom of his number. I looked like a midget out there. I couldn't believe it. I just felt so strong. 3 years ago, I was working a Raider game. Howie Long was complaining to me that he was being held. Long's about 6'6", about 275, and he's tough. He said, they're holding me. I said, they're not. He said, I said they're holding. I said, you're not. He said, you calling me a liar? I said, I'm not calling you a liar, but I'm telling you they're not holding. He said, I'm going to punch you right in the face. He said, nobody talks to me out here like that. I said, oh, you are going to punch me in the face? Go ahead and do it right here. His teammates heard this, Matt Millen and the bunch. Go ahead, Howie, hit him. Go ahead. I said, go ahead, either do it or shut up and back away. I knew he wasn't going to do it. He backed away, didn't talk to me the rest of the game. Didn't talk to me for 3 seasons, nothing, not a peep. Opening of the 87 season, the Raiders are up here at Green Bay. The game's over, we're in the airport. I'm walking through the bar to get to the restaurant where the officials are having a sandwich, where all my gear was, when Tom Flory stopped me and asked me about a play in the game, and I heard a voice from the bar say, is that you, Markbreit? I looked over, and there at the bar was a set of shoulders like that. It was Long. He said, I've been waiting 3 years to get you off the field. We're going out in the hall now to settle this. He got up from the chair, he turned, I went for my flag. He walked over, he put his arm on my shoulder, he said to Flores, this is the toughest referee in the league. He said, this guy tried to pick a fight with me right in the middle of the football field. Well, 8 weeks later, the Raiders were up at Seattle. It was the Bo Jackson 220-yard game. Somebody hit me from behind hard, and I was on my rear end, seeing stars, when I felt someone picking me up off the ground. I thought it was somebody on my crew, tucking my shirt in, putting my hat back on my head. I looked over my shoulder. It was big number 79. It was Long. Big smile on his face. Patted me on the fanny and whispered in my ear, little guys like you have to be protected. He really liked me because I was so tough. And of course, the best part of being in the NFL, every once in a while you can get something special, meet someone special, get involved with somebody wonderful. After Super Bowl 21, I got a letter from a little boy in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Dear Mr. Markbreit, you're my favorite referee. I wear a number 9 shirt every time I watch a football game. Could you send me an autographed picture? Something about yourself? I was flattered. I sent it. Sent everything I'd brought back from the Super Bowl, T-shirts and posters and the like. About a week later, I got a phone call. It was Charlie Stacy's father. He said, I want to tell you how much Charlie enjoyed getting your stuff. Charlie's the greatest football fan of all time. I want to tell you about Charlie. He's special. He's severely crippled with cerebral palsy. His whole life is sport. He has a hard time even speaking, but he knows everything about pro football, and he loves you and the officials. I was so flattered and so touched by his dad's call that I began to write to Charlie every week. I got a program from each game, and on Mondays after each ball game, I would write Charlie a letter telling him what went on in the ball game, something special, inside stuff that we're not supposed to talk about, that nobody knows but the officials. I wanted him to have something inside of football. This went on all year, and we got very friendly, and I was getting audio tapes every month from he and his dad. And I called him on his birthday, and we really got really close. I was hoping I'd get a game in Denver because John Elway's his favorite player in the whole world. Denver, his favorite team. They live about 3 hours from there, Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I didn't get a game during that year, but I got the January 10, 1988 Houston-Denver playoff game, and I sent 4 tickets to the family. They promised they'd come. We were going to meet at the 30-yard line, and at 1:30 on game day, down I went, and there they were. There was the mom and the dad and the sister and little Charlie, and I had it all prearranged. Over the fence came Charlie Stacy in my arms. I had John Elway, Rulon Jones, and Keith Bishop waiting there. They took this little boy and walked him all around the field. They spent 5 minutes with him. He got all kinds of souvenirs from the team. It was the biggest thrill of his life. Absolutely unbelievable. When they brought him back to me, he hugged me so hard and told me he had the best time he'd ever had in his life. I kissed that kid so hard on the face, gave him back to his dad, and went upstairs. Came down 3 minutes before kickoff, and his mom was standing at the fence. She said, "I want to tell you what Charlie said. He told us he had the best time he ever had, that he never thought he'd ever have a thrill like this. And he didn't want us to be mad because he told us he was never going to wash his left cheek again for the rest of his life because he didn't want to wash that kiss off." Well, this is our 3rd year now. He's doing terrific in school. We talk on the phone all the time. I continue to write. If he ever publishes those letters, I'll be fired instantly. But because of the National Football League, I'm involved in this little boy's life. The NFL's a wonderful thing. It's done a lot of wonderful things for people. I know you all enjoy watching the ball games. Rest assured that they are in good hands. I wish you all good luck, to all of the honorees tonight, and to all of you and your wonderful organization. And thank you very much for having me.
Well, Newsa-Cast listeners, we're glad you could join us for episode 9. I think it was a good one. I always think it's a good one, but I really enjoyed this one because we really take a kind of deep dive and looking at the state of refereeing and where we're at right now as a state, as a country. It's not just the Fox Valley issue. This is a country issue, and we are short of refs. And the refs that we have right now, we're kind of burning out to a point. And we do this. We want refs because we want our kids to play.
Yeah.
And we need to get more involvement, as we heard from all of the people in this podcast. We need more involvement at a youth level to get more refs involved so we can continue to have that service for these kids to play the games that they love.
You know what I hope, Tosh? It'd be kind of cool. And this is how I think of it and why I officiate it. It's just something different. Everybody has a hobby, or maybe you don't have a hobby. I don't know. But if you want to do something that's fun, that puts you outside your comfort zone, that you use your mind, you read, you study, you interact with people, you use so many different skills, and as much as you want to put into it, that's as much as you're going to get out of it. And I started officiating later in life. I wasn't young when I started this. I was, I'm trying to even think. I must have been right around 40, late 30s when I actually started officiating. And I wish I would have started it earlier. If you're young out there, we always talk about the athlete that has a chance to go to D1. Well, the same is for the official. I mean, I know several officials that, can you imagine working Camp Randall, a Big Ten game, or working in the NFL? That's not out of the question for young kids, that high school kids, people in their 20s that really want to get dedicated and take the craft serious. there's an opportunity there. But even if you don't get to that level, I mean, it's pretty cool to work high school games on a Friday night,
Right.
you know, or heck, it's a lot of fun to go out to Pop Warner and work those games. You know, it's just,
every level has something different.
Definitely.
And there's rewards in each and every one. And the rewards are different as you move through the levels. So,
and I would challenge any sports fan out there. I love sports as much as anybody out there. But I will tell you with 100% certainty, if you take up officiating, you will look at sports different. You will look at the sport that you're officiating completely different. I cannot watch a football game anymore like I used to watch a game. You know, I'm watching the officials. You just become part of that. You know, I love watching a Packer game, but I'm not focused like I once was on certain things. It's more
right.
You know, it's other things. So that's the cool thing about it, because it's a different experience. I don't know. Life's all about experiences, right, Tosh? You do a lot of really cool things, you know, from beekeeping to baling hay, you know, but this is one of those things. If you have a
absolutely.
project, I beg you to at least consider it. It's a lot of fun.
Our sports needs people to step up and ref.
Yeah.
So, this is good. This was a great episode. Hopefully we shine some light, and hopefully we inspire some people to jump into the ring and get the bug to do a little roughing.
That's right.
So if you enjoyed this episode, remember, we're coming back at you next week. I think we have a special one for you.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to hear the stories and the journeys. And remember, you can find these episodes wherever you find your podcast and listen to your favorite ones. So please come and join us, subscribe, check out the YouTube for the entire throwback episode. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely. Always a hoot, Tosh. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We appreciate your support. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thanks to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and create awareness for youth sports organizations in northeastern Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.